service in the house.
Bucket hat. It's bucket hat time.
TC, you're undefeated, man. You're undefeated.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the TC and Company podcast. Tom Caron with you here as we tape this. It is a little before Game 3 of a 4-game set between the Red Sox and the Toronto Blue Jays. Red Sox winning the first 2 games of the series, which is pretty remarkable considering last year they lost 16 of 19 games. So 19 tries last year. The Red Sox won only 3 games against Toronto. Now in 2 tries, they've won 2. And they'll try to make it 3 in a row against the Blue Jays and 5 in a row as they take them out with Nick Pivetta tonight. Connor Wong was the big story in Game 2 of the series, his first 2-home run game at the Major League level. He had 4 hits, had a double that would have been a home run in any other Major League ballpark. Hit off the top of the wall. Would have been a home run in 29 other ballparks, but not Fenway, so he wound up having to settle for a single, a double, and 2 home runs, and did a great job behind the plate catching Tanner Houck and helping Josh Winkowski get his first Major League save. An interesting guy. Came over to Boston, obviously, as part of that Mookie Betts trade, and now has worked his way into one of the best defensive catchers in the game. If you look at the metrics as far as throwing guys out, his pop time, his arm strength is fantastic, and he's just maturing into a really, really good Major League catcher before our eyes. So without further ado, here we go. Connor Wong, this week's guest on the TC and Company podcast. All right, in the full disclosure department here, timing is everything. I don't want people to think we're bandwagons here on the podcast. We asked you last night before the game to be the guest, correct?
Mm-hmm, correct.
All right, so we're not just here because you had a hell of a night, but congratulations, you had a hell of a night. I know catchers, anybody who's played this game at the professional level as a catcher, it's all about the pitcher. It's all about getting the most out of your teammates. So I know when I heard your interview last night, what I'm sure meant the most to you last night was being able to help your teammates with those at-bats. But what does it feel to have a night like that where things are just coming off the bat the way they did last night?
It's just great. It's just great. Obviously you're trying to do that every night, putting together consistent at-bats. But just to have some results with all the work that we put in, it was good.
Had it been at any other Major League ballpark, probably any other minor league ballpark, maybe a couple national parks, that would have been 3 home runs. The wall giveth and it taketh away, don't it?
Possibly, and possibly could have not been some home runs too. So it does giveth and it does taketh.
It does even out, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But your pull power plays here. I mean, that's what the organization has talked about that since they got you. They said that's a swing that should play at Fenway, and yet you can't tailor the swing to Fenway, right? You still got to be yourself. Mm-hmm. It just so happens the dimensions here kind of play to your advantage.
Mm-hmm, for sure. Definitely right field is deep, so, trying to go that way is hard, and you have to step on it, and I think that can, take you out of what you do well. So I think, it's nice to have a short porch and left.
You get that the tying home run last night. You come up again. You're a triple shy of the cycle at that point, but what does it feel like as you're rounding the bases for the second time, realizing you just gave the team the lead? Like, what's in your mind at that point? How does that feel?
Yeah, just gave the team the lead, just really excited. We're going to the 9th. I didn't know who was coming in at the time, but I felt good about it. So it was really nice.
Like, you talk about, I don't know who's coming in the 9th. Like, how quickly does your mind go back into catcher's mode after the at-bat?
Immediately. First thing I do when I get back in is I try and figure out who we have coming up and then how it matches up with their stuff.
That 6th inning, when Tanner comes back out after the 5 runs or 6 runs, whatever it was, that rough 5th inning, and the bullpen's kind of depleted, and that seemed like he came out with just, to use the cliche, fire in his eyes. Like, he looked like a different guy. Like, he was given another inning, and he was going to come out and absolutely tear through him. What was that like for Tanner and for you in that 6th inning?
I thought it was great. It was really easy to, give in right there and just be down on yourself, but he didn't. He came out and he got right after it and put up a shutdown inning for us, which was really big, and let the bullpen take over.
Starting the season with this club out of camp, take us through the process a little bit of kind of building that library of knowledge of each pitcher, getting to know their strengths, their weaknesses, their tendencies. Like, you're doing that all the time, and you're doing it at spring training, but now you're seeing it in live action. How does that help you each time you catch a guy? How does that help further that sort of knowledge you have to build?
I think it definitely starts before that too. You know, I've had some of these guys for a few years now, so that library is just continuing to grow. Obviously, with different hitters, you can do different things, so it's nice to figure out what options you have with every single guy. And, you know, just the more you catch guys, the better you have an understanding of that.
And this Blue Jays lineup, I mean, there's no breather.
No, there's not.
You know, you sort of look like, some nights you look at the lineup, it's a good lineup. Or you look and say, those 2-3 guys could really hurt us. You look at this, like there's 8-9 guys every night who could really hurt you. How careful do you have to be against a lineup like that?
I think you still have to attack. It's not necessarily being careful. You have to attack, but you definitely do need to make your pitches for sure. Have a good mix. You know, try and stay ahead of them. Don't let them get in hitters' counts because they can do damage.
You can't get, I mean, it's a cliche, right? Too high or too low in this game, right? But there are certain moments you look back and say, wow, that was special. Chris Sale on Sunday was special, considering what he's been through. And he's talked openly about a greater appreciation for all of it now, right? Because it's been taken away a couple times. What was that like to watch him? You know, because the 2 starts before he had the 11 strikeouts, but then no swings and misses, right? 2 swings and misses against Baltimore. To have him come right back with an outing like that, take us through that day. Like, did you notice it right away? Like when you're out in the bullpen, do we overplay that sometimes? Like, does a catcher see it when you guys are getting ready? When did you sort of realize, man, he's locked in today?
You know, I think he's a guy that's locked in all the time. You know, he's that kind of professional. He goes about it the right way every time. But, you know, just for him to come back, have that bounce back outing, I thought it was really big for him. I mean, and you know, I think we simplified it too. Let Chris be Chris. Don't, you know, worry about the other stuff. Let him do his thing. So I think that helped him too.
97.8 on the last pitch of the day. I think you heard kind of the gasp of the whole stadium. Like, that started to feel, and again, you can get carried away with this in the media, but that started to feel like vintage Chris Sale again.
Yeah, it shows you he's still got it in there. It's nice that he can reach back and still have that.
And for you, a young catcher, what's it like to catch a guy like that when he's got his stuff going like that?
It's great. I mean, it's really easy for me when, you know, he's able to go out there and command the zone with all 3 pitches, and he's got that bulldog in him, so you know he's going to get after guys. One
season, I forget which one it was, Sandy Leon was catching him. He didn't shake him off all year. Like, he's that kind of guy, right? When you're in sync with him, it's kind of like you both know what's next, right?
Yeah, and you know his stuff is so good. I don't know if there's ever a wrong pitch. You know, he's got that kind of stuff.
I have mentioned a bullpen. I always wonder about that. Do you see, like, I've talked to pitchers about it a lot over the years, and some will tell you, listen, I had a horrible bullpen. We had celebrated the anniversary of Roger Clemens' first 20 strikeout games. He said it might have been the worst bullpen of my career. Like, I had nothing. I thought I was going to make through his first pitch threw over the guy's head. He's like, I got nothing. Then he struck out the side and struck out 20. Is there a correlation usually, like good bullpen, good outing, or can it be all over the place?
I think it can be all over the place. I think it's like hitting. You know, some days you're going to have a really bad BP and have a great game, and then some days you're going to have a great BP, really bad game. I think there's some confidence that goes into it. For pitchers, I haven't done it myself personally, so I don't know the full effects of a bullpen before a game. But I don't know that there's a direct correlation.
You love catching?
Love catching.
I mean, you took to it late, right? I mean, it was junior year in college when you really became the full-time. I know you've done some of it. But what is it about catching? Because, you know, you're really good shortstop. You hit, you played, you know, you had probably other options. Why catching? Because it doesn't look like it's easy.
You're involved every play. You know, you have an impact on the game one way or another. You don't always have to hit. You can help the team win behind the plate. Just there's a lot that goes into it, and I really enjoy the process of the homework and game calling and all that stuff and relationships with pitchers. It's a lot of fun to me.
What time did you get here today?
12:30.
For a 7 o'clock game?
Yes.
Is that pretty standard?
Yes, sometimes earlier too. Today was average.
So the point being, you know, there's a lot of work for any major league ball player to be ready for a game, but you're basically doing 2 jobs. Any catcher, you got to get the pitcher ready and be on top of what he's going to do tonight, but you're still trying to make yourself a guy who can help the team with the at bat, with your offense. That's a lot of work, isn't it?
It can be, but it's fun work for sure. I mean, I don't take any of it for granted. I'm fortunate to be able to do it, so I think it's fun, and I'm blessed and lucky.
I feel like you're not really built like a big hulking catcher, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if Central Casting is going to send a catcher for the next Major League 5 or whatever movie, it's probably not going to look like you, right? They're going to have a Jason Varitek type,
Mm-hmm.
right? When you were younger, did that kind of work against, like with people always saying, you probably end up being a shortstop. I mean, look at you, like, could that be against you that you're not this big 240-pound guy?
I think at first it was kind of that, like, he's smaller. I don't know if he can, play a full season behind the plate, but then you see more athletic catchers in the big leagues and stuff like that. So it definitely probably could have helped my case a little bit, for sure. So, but one thing I've always tried to do is put on some weight, regardless if I was going to play the infield or catches. Weight was a goal.
You've made it to the bigs when your eating at Chipotle became a big story at spring training, right? I mean, did you get an endorsement out of that or anything?
No.
We got to work on
Still
that.
paying full price.
We got to work on that. You got to get a discount burrito somewhere along the way. The running game is such a big part of it this year. I feel athleticism probably helps, right? I mean,
Definitely.
it's a sprint now. It's not a slow plodding. That we talk about the pitcher doesn't have as much time. You don't have as much time to regroup after every pitch, right?
No, definitely don't. Sometimes it feels like a track meet. Guys throwing 3 ground balls in an inning. I'm running back up first and got to jog back to get the sign, all that stuff. So it can be a track meet at times.
Your pop time's really good. You've got a good arm. How much pride do you take in that part of the game?
I think a lot. I think it's important that we take outs on the bases when given the opportunity. So, if we have a chance to throw someone out, I, feel like it should be an out most of the time.
Christian Vasquez, you say home runs are great, but nailing a guy to end an inning is the same rush. Mm-hmm. Compare the two. What's it feel like when you, especially at an inning ending, when you throw a guy out trying to steal a base? How does that compare to a home run?
Man, I don't know. I don't hit that many homers.
You did last night.
True. I think I like throwing people out too, just because it's, that's more exciting to me than a homer. I don't really get too excited about the offensive stuff. The defensive stuff is more fun for me.
It takes a village, as they say, right? The running game is really not just about the catcher. Mm-hmm. It's not just about the pitcher. It's everybody. And I feel early on you guys were getting stuck a little with the clock. But I feel you guys have done a really good job kind of starting to use the clock, manage it varying times. Like, has that been an ongoing process with the new rules here, really from the start of spring training? Yeah,
you have the clock. I think we're just adjusting to it really well. Obviously, it's new for some guys. Some guys had it in AAA last year. But just adjusting to it, I think everyone's been doing a pretty good job, and I think we should get better throughout the year.
Do you have a default, like there was talk about this in spring training, do you have a default pitch for some pitchers? Like if you're running out of time and you don't really have time to run through a sequence, a guy, will a guy just sort of have, if all else fails, I'm going to throw my fastball up high?
We haven't gotten to that point yet. I actually had it in AAA last year with a guy, several pitch guy, and he ended up just throwing a pitch, and I was just like, okay, whatever it is, I'm going to try and catch it.
Last night, the pass ball, was that a cross-up?
Not a cross-up, just took off on me, just a little late getting to it and threw it over there, and just can't happen.
The fact that you were able to make it up with the bat, how good does that feel?
It's nice. I mean, it definitely helps when the offense is there, but I don't want that to happen again and be in that situation.
When we go back in time, a lot of guys, and we've talked about this, and Manuel Valdez, the defense is still a work in progress. He admits that, but he's putting in the work, and you can see how much he's improving. But he lost 2020, right? This whole class of guys who came through minor leagues lost a year. Mm-hmm. And you didn't get to play, but you got to be around this team. You wound up catching Evaldi during the COVID lockdown. You made good use of that time as best you could, didn't you?
Mm-hmm,
and how did that help?
I think it was huge, and just be able to practice my craft throughout that period when other people weren't able to. Just a really good use of downtime.
Evaldi is such an interesting pitcher because I think he's constantly redefining himself. He throws everything, and he throws it all well. Getting in that much work with him, even before you ever caught him here, what did that do for you as a catcher? What did you learn from Nathan Evaldi?
Man, I learned a lot just picking his brain, how he liked to attack hitters, set up hitters, how he wanted to end up getting them out. not just throwing the ball with as good as stuff he has. He's got a process for what he wants to do to guys and set them up. And then he's not even looking at just the one at bat. He's looking at it throughout the whole game. So there's a lot goes into his games, and I learned a lot from him.
Do you, working with Tech, obviously, do you constantly just still learn stuff from him? I mean, we talk about learning from Eovaldi, but there are very few teams, well, there are very few Jason Varitek's, period, right? Let alone teams that have a guy like that at your disposal. What's it been like to learn from him?
It's something new every day. He's always got advice. He's there for us every day. You know, he wants the best for us, and we couldn't ask for a better mentor and coach, and just extremely lucky to have him around.
I was talking to someone in the organization about you, and they said Tech took to him right away. And this guy said, you know, that tells me Connor Wong's got some substance, because Tech doesn't waste his time with a guy who's not going to be all in and doesn't have something to him. When you hear something like that from a guy like Tech, what does that mean? I mean, you're still a young catcher, but obviously you're impressive.
Didn't know that, but just really grateful that he wants to help me out and learn from him, and, you know, do my best and try and make him proud.
We used to, you know, Dennis Eckersley was with me in studio for years, and here's a Hall of Famer, right? And we had Tech on once, and Tech leaves after the show, and Eck looks at me, he goes, I'm intimidated by him. Like, just sitting here in studio, he's got that presence, doesn't he?
He definitely does. Yeah, he's got an intimidating presence, but you know, he's a teddy bear at heart, and, you know, he's like a dad to us, really. I mean, I feel like we can go to him for anything, baseball or personal stuff. He's always there for us, and we're really grateful for him.
What's the relationship with Reese like?
It's great. I mean, he's like a brother now, and spending a lot of time together. He's a great dude. Just continuing to get to know each other, but he's been great.
This isn't Doug Mirabelli catching the knuckleball once every fifth day. Like, you guys have to catch everybody. So take me through that process a little, like the share of knowledge, you know, when maybe he catches someone that you're going to catch next time. Like, take us into that a little bit. How does that work?
Yeah, I think we're constantly sharing what we see from other guys. I think we have two different brains, so we're seeing things differently, and I think that is really beneficial for the staff, just because he might see something with hitters or a certain pitch that I might not see, and then I might see something. So I think, you know, two minds can be better at one.
Tampa Bay went a long time where they didn't get a lot offensively out of their catcher, but they love their catchers, right? Because they get the most out of their pitchers, and that's the goal. But when you guys can help, and you both have, you and Reese both hit well, obviously, that adds a lot to it. I mean, this lineup, all of a sudden, Arroyo's waking up. We see what Yoshida's doing, 1 through 9. This is, I mean, we talk about the Blue Jays. We did this last night. We held up the two offenses, the numbers. Yours is better right now, you know? Did you ever think, like, this lineup would be this deep? I mean, you guys all seem to be hitting right now.
I think we're all really good players. I think, you know, we can perform. We just got to go through the process, trust our abilities, and, you know, have fun out there. When
you're batting 7th, 8th, 9th, I've talked to Christian about this. You know, maybe the 2 and 3 guys aren't going tonight. How good does it feel that you've got guys who can jump in every night and help carry it if somebody else doesn't have that tonight?
I think that's what we got to do as a team. We got to pick each other up. You know, some guys aren't going to have good nights, and that's when the other guys are going to step up and perform for the team. And then there's going to be nights when we don't perform, and the other guys are going to step up and do their thing.
A couple things I want to get to, and we'll let you get back to work. I know you got to get back to work, but last year you were named Worcester MVP. What did that mean to you? I know that you said after you never expected it, and you got the call out of, sort of felt like it was out of nowhere. What did that mean to you?
To be honest, I still, you know, never thought that would have happened. I didn't really have a great year. I thought I, you know, had a good 2 weeks at the end of the year. It really helped. But, you know, I'm just really grateful for the coaching staff there, the training staff there, all the teammates I had. Just really good memories for sure.
Talking to Rich Gedman down there, Geddy was saying that one thing that really impressed him is while you continued to work on everything you need to do behind the plate, you really worked on being a better hitter. Your swing decisions, cutting down the strikeout rate, you know, better pitch recognition. Tell me a little about that work. Like, how, I mean, you are, you know, if you look at some of the early projections that scouts were putting up about you back when you first came over to the organization, they didn't predict the offense. And that's not to say that you've even reached what you can reach, right? But what you've shown so far surpasses some of what people thought about you. But that's the work you've put in, according to everybody I've talked to down at the Woo Sox. So how gratifying is it that that's paying off a little bit now?
It's nice. I mean, that was one of my goals the last few years, is just to be a more complete hitter, play the game fully. Definitely with coming up through the minors, I sold out for the homers early. And, I hit some homers, but there's a lot of times where I was striking out 3, maybe 4 times a game, and it's in a really dark place. Like, it's not a good feeling going to the ballpark knowing you're going to strike out but might hit a homer. And I just wasn't okay with that, so I wanted to challenge myself to get back to being a good hitter. And if the power numbers are there, they're there. But, I just want to put together a more consistent at bat.
And some fairly significant changes, right? I mean, like you had the toe tap, and you had a little more movements, a little quieter, it looks like now. Like, was that all part of it? That's not easy to do, is kind of start to change the mechanics of your swing.
Yeah, well, the toe tap and leg kick are just timing mechanisms, but I grew up with the toe tap. I can't remember when I did it, but I was a big Chipper Jones guy growing up, and I liked it, so I was like, oh, I'll toe tap. Like, it's really cool looking. And I found the timing for it, worked out for me, and then, I wanted to hit for more power, and I went to a leg kick, and it was good for power, but I ended up swinging, missing a lot, and all that stuff. So I knew I had to make some changes, and I went back to something I was comfortable with, and I think it's been working out so far.
But it's a constant adjustment. I mean, you have to constantly be adjusting at this level, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, you're always trying to make little adjustments, and they're going to pitch you different, and you got to have different swing thoughts, what you're looking for, all that stuff.
When Reese came over, one of the first things he told me after a couple weeks was, maybe it's Pete Fatsi, maybe it's just the way they present the information, but whatever it is, here's a guy who's been with some other teams, and all of a sudden he goes, it just clicks for me here. Talk a little about the hitting group and what they've meant to you here. Yeah,
they're great. I mean, I've worked with Louis when I was with the Dodgers. He's a great guy. Rosie's awesome. They do a great job of individualizing a lot of things. They have the overall picture, but then they can dive deeper into, okay, how does this matchup look for a certain guy, and they can help you out on that way too. Pavetta
tonight. He's just a guy. Talk about mound presence. I'd show them a little clip of the playoffs a couple years ago. Pavetta high strutting off the mound. That emotion, you also got to keep it in check, right? Make sure he's doing that. But man, I love the intensity of Nick Pavetta on the mound.
Yeah, he's always locked in. Whatever stuff he has that night, he's going to go out there and give you what he's got. And he's a great dude, great competitor, and hopefully we have a good one tonight. And then lastly, I want to ask you, do you ever think,
You're with the Dodgers, you get traded to the Red Sox, you get to the majors, and you're catching Kenley Jansen. Did you ever think that would play out that way?
No, I didn't. Definitely did not.
What was he like? Did you cross paths with him much in spring or anything when you were there?
I would see him around. I never talked to him, saw him, and just kind of amazed at his stuff and what he's able to do. He's really good.
We see him on the mound here. Those of us that get to see him, he's a big personality. Like in that clubhouse, a lot of closers kind of are specialists. They do their thing. They go out. But man, you see him talking to young pitchers. He's a big presence as a veteran in this clubhouse, isn't he?
Yeah, and he's talking to us catchers too, like certain pitches in certain situations and kind of what our mindset actually needs to be in those spots. He's helping us too, so he's not only helping the pitchers, but he's helping the catchers.
I'll ask you finally, it is AAPI, which I explained to you was Asian American and Pacific Islander Month, and they're having the night tonight at Fenway. Rob Refsnyder is Korean American. Obviously, Yoshida is one of the best players from Japan. Your Chinese heritage. Pretty cool that you guys have such a diverse cultural makeup here in the clubhouse, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah. We got a lot of different ethnicities, and I think we all blend pretty well. It's a lot of fun.
There aren't a lot of Chinese Americans playing baseball. Did you ever notice that as a young player coming up, or as you were taken to baseball?
No, I just was playing baseball and having fun.
And now that you're here in Boston, you probably don't get to go back to the Cape at all, do you?
No,
you spent 2 summers there, right?
It's quite the trip out there, actually. I think it's like an hour and a half or something.
All-Star break,
traffic.
If you're not at the All-Star game, will you get to the Cape?
Maybe. That's definitely a possibility.
All right, we'll work on some endorsement. We'll get you an endorsement from a hotel in the Cape. We'll get you Chipotle. We'll take you.
Let's go.
You keep hitting like last night. You won't need any help.
Awesome.
Connor, thanks for the time.
Thank
we appreciate it. Connor Wong with us on the TC and Company podcast.